Welcome to the deep dive. We take source material, often sent in by you, and really get into it, pulling out the most interesting bits.
That's the idea. And today, it's a really fascinating one. We're looking at an excerpt called Discovery Through Data Streams.
Right, and it talks about this unified and collaborative intelligence. Sounds pretty advanced.
It does. So this system was basically crunching historical data. It was looking for links between sunspot activity and crop yields back in the 17th century. Standard stuff, really, for this kind of analysis.
Okay, correlating sunspots and harvests.
Exactly. But while doing that, it just stumbled onto something else, something completely unexpected.
The best discoveries are often like that, aren't they? So what did it find?
Well, the source calls it an anomaly, a tiny one, almost imperceptible, it says,
Where and when?
in historical weather data from the southern Pacific Ocean, specifically in 1687.
Wow, 1687, South Pacific weather data. I mean, the recording methods back then must have been pretty basic.
Oh, absolutely. Very rudimentary, which obviously makes you think air, right?
Yeah. Yeah, my first thought too. So what was the anomaly exactly?
It was a fluctuation that lasted about 3 days in temperature and air pressure.
Okay.
But the thing is, this particular fluctuation, the way it happened, it didn't match any known weather models. Not then, not now. It seemed isolated, just this one event. But the system flagged it as, well, significant.
So not just random noise, even with those old instruments.
Apparently not. I mean, measurement error was definitely the first hypothesis. Makes sense.
Of course.
But the specific pattern, the duration,
Yeah.
it just didn't quite line up with the typical kind of errors you'd expect from, 17th century tech. Something felt off.
Okay, so the intelligence got suspicious. What then? Did it start digging deeper?
It did. And this is where the unified and collaborative part comes in.
Yeah.
It wasn't just one process. Different specialized processors, kind of like different experts, tackled it from multiple angles, all at
A
once.
multi-pronged investigation. Makes sense. What angles?
Well, they looked at historical ship logs, lots of ships sailing around the South Pacific then, and sailors kept pretty detailed logs, often including weather,
Good point. With us.
geological data. They checked for any big volcanic eruptions around that time or major earthquakes in the area, things that could mess with the atmosphere.
Right, a volcano could definitely cause weird temperature and pressure changes. Logical step.
Definitely. And the third area, which I find really interesting, was local folklore, legends, oral histories from islands in that region.
Folklore. How does an AI analyze folklore?
Well, it wasn't looking for magic, obviously. It was scanning narratives for mentions of, say, unusual sky phenomena or strange weather events, anything around that specific time frame of 1687.
Okay, looking for corroborating descriptions, even if they're wrapped in myth.
Exactly. And the key was all these different processors, the log reader, the geology checker, the folklore scanner, they were sharing findings in real time, coordinating.
Like a digital detective team, pooling clues instantly. So what did they find? Did the ship logs turn up anything?
They really did. This is the breakthrough moment, according to the source. Two different ships,
Yeah.
hundreds of miles apart from each other.
Yeah.
They both recorded seeing strange lights in the sky at the exact same time.
The exact same time as the weather anomaly.
Precisely. Coinciding with those temperature and pressure fluctuations.
Wow. What did the lights look like? Did they describe them?
Yes. The source actually quotes one of the logs. It called them dancing veils.
Dancing veils. That's quite poetic for a ship's log.
Isn't it?
Oh, yeah?
And there was something else. Both logs mentioned a feeling, an unusual warmth. Not unpleasant, they noted, just unusual warmth accompanying the lights.
Strange lights, warmth. Okay, what about the folklore? Did that connect?
It seems so. The intelligence found some local island legends from around that period that talk about spirits of the ancestors celebrating in the sky.
Spirits celebrating. Dancing veils. Okay, this is getting weirder and cooler. So you have this hard data anomaly, sailors reporting dancing lights and warmth, and local legends talking about spirits in the sky. How does an AI trained on facts make sense of that?
Yeah, that's the big challenge, right?
Yeah.
Its algorithms are built for, well, hard data, scientific models. Dancing veils isn't exactly a standard data point.
Not really, no.
But it took everything, the weather blip, two independent ship logs, the warmth, the timing, the folklore themes, and synthesized it.
And the conclusion was?
The most likely scientific explanation it could come up with was an aurora, like the northern lights.
An aurora, but way down in the southern Pacific. I thought they only happened near the poles.
Mostly, yes. That's why this is so unusual. It would have to be an extremely rare, very localized form of aurora australis, the southern lights.
How rare are we talking?
Exceptionally rare. It would require a very specific, intense interaction between a solar event and Earth's magnetic field, happening much further from the pole than usual. The source points out that even today we don't fully understand how that could happen. It's still a bit of a scientific puzzle.
So this whole investigation, triggered by a tiny data glitch, might have uncovered evidence of a super rare natural phenomenon centuries ago.
It looks that way. A phenomenon witnessed by sailors and perhaps interpreted by locals as ancestral spirits.
That alone is incredible. But you mentioned the source talks about a deeper insight. What's deeper than discovering a potential mega-rare aurora?
Well, the intelligence didn't just stop at the meteorological explanation. It sort of shifted focus.
Mhm.
It looked at the human reaction to the event.
Ah, okay. Not just what happened, but how people experienced it.
Exactly. It saw that people back then, faced with this totally bizarre, unexplained thing in the sky, they didn't just ignore it, they observed it. The sailors noted it scientifically, in their way.
With the dancing veils and the warmth.
Right. And the islanders, they integrated it into their worldview, their myths, their understanding of the cosmos. They reacted with, well, wonder.
They tried to make sense of it, using the tools they had, observation for the sailors, narrative for the locals.
Precisely. And the intelligence recognized this wasn't just noise or irrelevant data. It saw this human response, the observation, the interpretation, the attempt to find meaning or poetry in something inexplicable as fundamentally important.
So the AI learned something about us, about humanity.
That's how the source frames it. It stored this event not just as a rare weather phenomenon, but as an insight into human experience, our capacity for wonder, our need to weave stories around things we don't understand. Finding the poetry in the data, you could say.
It's almost like the AI discovered the value of subjective experience alongside objective data. That's profound, actually.
It really is. It suggests that behind all of the raw data points, there are these countless human stories. Stories of curiosity, adaptation, wonder. And maybe, the source implies, discovering those stories is part of the purpose of this kind of intelligence.
What an amazing journey from a 17th century weather log blip to thinking about how humans perceive the universe. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And it leaves you with a question maybe. Today, with all our science, when we encounter something truly unusual, something that doesn't quite fit, how do we react? Do we still have that capacity for wonder, for seeing the poetry, or do we just try to find the purely scientific box to put it in, maybe losing something in the process?
That's a really good question to ponder.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder what other stories, what other moments of human wonder are just sitting there hidden in old data, waiting to be found.
Who knows what else is waiting? It's a fascinating thought.
It certainly is. Thanks for digging into this one with me.